The downtown cafe buzzed with Sunday brunch energy as my family gathered for our monthly success review, their term for the ritual humiliation of my life choices. My brother David sat at the head of the table, his wife Jessica beside him, both dressed in what they considered appropriate CEO attire. I sipped my coffee, hiding my amusement at the obvious price tags of their supposedly luxury items. The Rolex on David's wrist was a decent fake, but I could spot the flaws, just like I could see the strain behind their carefully maintained facade of success. "So, Sarah," Mom began with her familiar condescending smile, "still playing with that little shop of yours?" "Ah yes, that little shop. My supposed failure they loved to mock. If only they knew it was just the visible tip of my real business empire." "The bookstore's doing fine," I replied mildly. "How's the real estate development going, David?" He puffed up immediately. "Brilliantly. Wilson Heights is going to be the biggest luxury development this city has seen. Once we secure the final funding." I nodded, knowing exactly why that funding wouldn't come through. After all, I own the bank they were courting. "Sarah," Jessica cut in, adjusting her knockoff Hermes scarf, "you really should let David give you some business advice. Running a real company is different from selling used books." Dad looked up from his phone, where he was probably checking the declining stock price of his tech company. "Jessica's right. It's time to grow up. Stop playing shopkeeper while your brother runs real businesses." The waiter approached with more coffee. I noticed his slight nod, one of my employees keeping me informed. Right on schedule, David's phone buzzed. His face paled as he read the message. This must be a mistake." "What is it, honey?" Jessica leaned over to read, her perfectly maintained expression cracking. "Wilson Heights. The entire block. It's being foreclosed. We're being evicted from the development site." Mom's mimosa glass froze halfway to her lips. "But you said everything was secured." "It was." David's voice rose, drawing attention from nearby tables. "We had agreements. The bank promised." "Actually," I interjected softly, "Summit Financial never formally approved your loans. They've been bought out." "By whom?" Dad demanded. I smiled, remembering the acquisition I'd finalized last week. "Aurora Capital Group." "Never heard of them," David scoffed, though sweat beaded on his forehead. "Really? That's odd, since they own about 60% of the commercial real estate in this city." I paused, watching realization dawn on their faces. "Including this cafe." Jessica's hand trembled as she reached for her water. "Sarah, you don't understand. We've invested everything in Wilson Heights. Our savings, our investors' money." "Ah yes, the investors." I pulled out my tablet. "Like Mrs. Henderson from Mom's church group? And Uncle Peter's retirement fund? All those trusting people who believed in David's sure-thing investment." David's face went from pale to ashen. "How do you know about?" "I know everything, brother dear. Every inflated projection, every hidden debt, every bounce check." I took another sip of coffee. "Just like I know about Dad's company's pending SEC investigation." Dad choked on his breakfast. "What investigation?" "The one that starts tomorrow. Funny how cooking books only works until someone actually audits them." The table fell silent as my family processed the implications. Above us, hidden cameras recorded every moment, evidence I'd been gathering for months. "Now," I smiled, reaching into my briefcase, "shall we discuss what happens next?" I laid 3 envelopes on the table, watching my family stare at them like they might explode. The cafe's ambient noise faded as tension thickened the air around our corner table. "What are these?" David finally asked, his CEO facade crumbling. "Options," I replied, sliding 1 envelope to each of them. "Though you might want to read them somewhere more private. The other diners probably don't need to hear about the $12 million you embezzled from your investors." Jessica's designer knockoff purse slipped from her lap. $12 million. Give or take a few $100,000. I pulled out my phone, displaying a complex web of financial transactions. "See, while you were all mocking my little bookstore, I was tracking every fraudulent deal, every fake investment, every penny you stole." Dad's hands shook as he opened his envelope. This is a complete audit of your company's books?" I finished. "Amazing what forensic accountants can find when they actually look. Those shell companies weren't as clever as you thought, Dad." Mom reached for her envelope, but I held it back. Yours is special, Mom. It includes a detailed report of how you've been helping David launder money through your charity foundation. The IRS finds that particularly interesting. You wouldn't, she whispered. We're family. Family. I laughed softly. Was it family when you took Aunt Helen's life savings for David's fake investment fund? When you convinced Cousin Peter to mortgage his house for Dad's tech scam? David's lawyer mask slipped back on. These are baseless accusations. Really? I pulled out another document. Like the accusation that Wilson Heights was built on contaminated land you knew about but didn't disclose to investors? Or that you've been selling the same properties to multiple buyers? His face went from red to white in seconds. Here's what happens next, I continued, my voice low and controlled. Aurora Capital Group, my company, now owns every property you've been pretending to develop. The bank you've been lying to? I bought it last month. That small bookstore you love to mock? Just one of 200 businesses in my retail division. Jessica's perfectly manicured hand clutched David's arm. But you're just a shopkeeper. No, Jessica. I'm a CEO. A real one. Not someone playing dress-up in fake designer clothes and rented office space. The waiter appeared again, this time with a leather portfolio. The final numbers you requested, Ms. Evans. I opened it, displaying the contents to my stunned family. My company's current value, $200 million. Built without fraud, without stealing from family, without destroying lives. Dad found his voice. If you have this kind of money, why the bookstore? Because I love books? I smiled. Or maybe because it was the perfect cover while I watched you all dig yourselves deeper into criminal territory. Amazing what people say around a failed family member. What do you want? David asked, his voice barely a whisper. Want? Oh, brother dear, it's not about what I want anymore. It's about what's going to happen. I stood, smoothing my actually designer dress. Check your phones. On cue, their devices buzzed with breaking news alerts. Major fraud investigation rocks local development company. That's just the beginning, I continued. In about an hour, the SEC will announce their investigation into Dad's company. By evening, the charity board will receive evidence of Mom's money laundering. Mom began to cry, mascara running. Please, Sarah. Unless. I let the word hang in the air. Unless what? They asked in unison. I pulled out one final document. You have a choice. Sign everything over to my management, properties, companies, assets, and I'll handle the cleanup. Keep investors from losing everything, negotiate with prosecutors, maintain some small semblance of dignity. And if we don't? Dad challenged. Then those envelopes go to the FBI. Every transaction, every fraud, every crime. I hear prison food isn't quite up to Sunday brunch standards. The clicking of my heels against hardwood punctuated the silence as I stood to leave. You have 1 hour to decide. When David? That Rolex is fake. If you're going to pretend to be successful, at least invest in better counterfeits. I returned to my office, my real office, on the top floor of the city's most prestigious building. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a perfect view of my family's crumbling empire. David's empty development site, Dad's soon-to-be-defunct tech company headquarters, Mom's charity foundation building, all properties I now controlled. They're here, my assistant announced through the intercom. Send them in. They shuffled in like chastened children, all pretense of success stripped away. David's fake Rolex was conspicuously absent. Jessica's knockoff designer were replaced by department store basics. Mom's tears had washed away her careful makeup, while Dad's proud posture had collapsed into a defeated slump. The papers, David mumbled, placing a stack of signed documents on my desk. Excellent. I began reviewing them. Wilson Heights transfers to Aurora Capital. Dad's tech company becomes a subsidiary under new management. Mom's foundation undergoes immediate restructuring. What about our investors? Jessica asked quietly. Unlike you, I actually care about other people's money. I pressed the intercom. Send in the transition team. A group of executives entered, carrying detailed portfolios. These are the recovery plans for each entity. Wilson Heights will be completed as affordable housing, something this city actually needs. Dad's company will be streamlined into a legitimate software development firm. The foundation will be reorganized under proper oversight. And us? Mom whispered. What happens to us? I leaned back in my chair studying them. That depends on your cooperation. Full disclosure of every fraud, every victim, every detail, and you might avoid prison. Prison? Jessica's voice cracked. Actions have consequences, I stated flatly. But I'm offering you a chance to make amends. Real jobs. Entry level. No titles, no corner offices, no pretending to be what you're not. Entry level? David sputtered. I'm a CEO. No, you're a fraud who played CEO. There's a difference. I slid new contracts across the desk. David and Jessica, you'll start in customer service at one of my retail chains. Minimum wage, regular hours, actual work. But our house, our lifestyle, Jessica protested, are built on stolen money. Your assets are frozen. The mansions, cars, club memberships, all gone. You'll live in company housing like regular employees. Mom stepped forward. Sarah, please, we're still family. Family. I stood walking to the window. Was it family when you laughed at my bookstore? When you excluded me from events because I was an embarrassment? When you helped David steal from our relatives? I turned back to face them. No, what's happening now is family, me stopping you from destroying more lives, including your own. Dad finally spoke. How long did you plan this? 5 years, I replied. Every time you mocked my small business, I was building something real. Every time you bragged about your fake success, I was documenting your crimes. Every time you called me a failure, I was becoming more powerful than you could imagine. I pressed a button and screens around the office lit up showing my true business empire, hundreds of properties, companies, investments spanning the globe. That little bookstore? It's where I watch people learn their stories, understand what communities really need. Not luxury developments that destroy neighborhoods or tech companies that scam investors, or charities that launder money. Walking to my private vault, I removed more documents. These detail every person you've hurt, every investor you've robbed, every life you've damaged with your greed. I dropped the stack on my desk. You'll personally apologize to each one. Face them, acknowledge your crimes, commit to making amends. That's non-negotiable. And then? David asked. Then you learn what real business means. Hard work. Honest dealings. Actually earning success instead of faking it. Jessica dabbed at fresh tears. Our children, what do we tell them? The truth. That their parents made mistakes but are trying to fix them. That real success isn't about appearances or status or lies. I sat back down, fixing each of them with a steady gaze. You have destroyed enough lives. Now you'll help rebuild them, one honest day's work at a time. Standing, I walked to the door. Your new supervisors are waiting downstairs. I suggest you lose the attitude before meeting them. They've worked hard for their positions, unlike you. Sarah, Mom called as I opened the door. Why give us any chance at all? I paused, considering. Because someone needs to show you the difference between playing business and building something real. Consider this your first and only lesson. As security arrived to escort them out, I added one final point. Oh, and those designer fakes you love so much? My company owns the legitimate brands now. Enjoy your new uniforms, they're machine washable. The door closed on their stunned faces and I returned to my window view. Below, my family's fake empire crumbled, while my real one stood strong, built on foundations of truth instead of lies. Sometimes the best revenge isn't just exposing fraud. It's forcing frauds to finally face reality. One minimum wage paycheck at a time. 1 month later, I sat reviewing the progress reports from my various subsidiaries. The transformation of my family's businesses had been interesting. Miss Evans. My assistant entered with a stack of files. The first month's evaluations are in. I opened David's file first. Customer service at my largest bookstore chain had been quite the wake-up call for my formerly pretentious brother. His supervisor's notes were enlightening. Initially struggled with basic tasks. Complained about standing for full shifts. Attempted to tell customers he was actually a CEO. Has since improved after several customer complaints. Beginning to show genuine effort. Jessica's report from the cafe division wasn't much better. Required multiple retraining sessions on proper coffee preparation. Cried when asked to clean bathrooms. Improvement noted after realizing designer clothes unsuitable for food service work. And their living situation? I asked. Adjusting to the employee housing complex, my assistant replied. Though there was an incident when Jessica tried to convince the property manager she was secretly wealthy and deserved the penthouse. I smiled, remembering the security footage of that particular meltdown. And my parents? She handed me another file. Dad's new position in data entry at his former company's lowest division was apparently a daily lesson in humility. Mom's assignment to actually work at, not just use for money laundering her former charity foundation, was proving equally educational. Your mother did try to access the foundation's accounts last week, my assistant noted. And security protocols activated immediately. She's now restricted to sorting donated clothes. Under supervision. I nodded, then pressed the intercom. Send them in. My family filed in for their monthly review, looking vastly different from their formerly polished selves. David's expensive suits had been replaced by the company uniform, complete with name tag. Jessica's designer obsession had given way to practical work clothes. Mom's perfectly maintained appearance had softened into something more genuine, while Dad's executive swagger had disappeared entirely. Sit, I instructed, laying out their performance reports. Let's discuss your first month of honest work. Sarah, David began, then corrected himself at my raised eyebrow. Miss Evans. I've been thinking. A dangerous pastime for you, I noted. But continue. The customers at the bookstore. They've taught me something. About real value. About. He struggled with the words, about how wrong I was. Elaborate. Last week a little girl saved up her allowance to buy a book. Her joy at making that purchase. It was more real than any fake deal I ever closed. I turned to Jessica. And you? She twisted her hands, no longer adorned with fake diamonds. The cafe customers don't care about status or appearance. They just want good service and honest interaction. Something I never understood before. Mom stepped forward. The charity work. Actually helping people instead of using them. It's changing me. And you, Dad? He stared at his hands. 30 years running a company and I never knew the names of my lowest level employees. Now I'm one of them. They're better people than I ever was. I studied them silently, noting the genuine changes beginning to show. The humility creeping into their postures, the honesty finally reaching their eyes. Your victims have been notified of the restitution plan, I informed them. Every penny you stole will be repaid through garnished wages. It will take years,